Hello, I'm Brad Johnson, and welcome to the Psychic Academy. In this video, we're going to be talking about facing barriers and achieving release. Now, one of the very common forms of advice that can be given for people that are beginning an awakening process is the aspect pertaining to release. Just release your fears, just release your concerns, and you'll notice how much you will expand. In all retrospect, this is easier said than done. It's not about the aspect of one having to feel that they release themselves when they do not understand what they're releasing. It's not about, firstly, releasing your fears. You cannot release with that which you do not yet understand what you're holding on to. So the key here is developing your own intuitive ability, developing your own psychic senses, helping you with your own self-empowerment, becoming a healing facilitator, helping to heal yourself, is all part and parcel of allowing yourself to face the barriers that have prevented yourself from going to these particular abilities in the first place. It's not the idea of feeling that something needs to be immediately addressed without really being able to understand it, saying, oh my goodness, here's a fear, purge it right away. Look into the aspect of the fear itself. It's as what was talked about in the previous video, representing the thought meditation and observing your thoughts. As you start to observe your thoughts in meditation, then again you go through a multiple key process. You're going through acknowledgement, you're going through forgiveness, and you're going into liberation. The same applies here, is that your own fears are just looking to get your attention. How the universe works is that when we first start to really identify with a particular thought, and we have encoded that particular thought with a form of meaning, and that form of meaning may, for example, in this case, be something very traumatic, then what happens is that thought starts to build as we do not acknowledge what we have created. We're simply pumping more fear into that thought, representing fear, and now it gets larger and larger and larger every single time it comes around to allow opportunity of it being acknowledged, forgiven, and liberated. So as we continue to ignore or feel that we need to throw that thought away in the dark and not look at it again, it only gains power, because it is that fear that we don't want to look at. We have been bred through much of the programmings in society to feel that you're not supposed to look at your fear, just don't worry about it, throw it aside. It's too scary to look at. You shouldn't be looking at that stuff. You need to focus on the positive. You need to bring yourself into the positive alignment, and that's what's going to help you to move into a more evolved being. Well, that's true. You certainly can utilize positive energy when you firstly understand what the fear is and how it was attracted to you. That traumatic event was all based upon something that you instilled as fear in that moment of your life. If that, for example, happened at age 7, and here you are now at age 22, and that fear is now gigantic, and it's still starting to spiral itself out of control because more fear is put upon it, then there is no feeling that, well, what I had with age 7 still needs to be verified and still needs to be confirmed right here at age 22. I'm still going to fear it. It doesn't have to come to that point anymore. It's now that you are age 22, you're a completely different person. You need to go back to the source, to the root of that trauma. If it was a trauma that represented family abuse, understand that yes, these can be very traumatic. This can be something that can haunt a young child. But the whole idea is that you're still looking at the viewpoint of that situation as a 7-year-old child. Have you considered looking into the entire timeline of that event? Have you considered looking into the parent that may have been abusive? What was going through their mind? As a psychic, we're able to do this. We're able to tap into other people and get some type of perception relating to what their mentality was at that time. We're going into timeline rearrangement, and we're looking into the elements of these people that may have caused us pain in those moments to when we were a young child. And as an adult, we hold those grudges. We feel that that point is unforgivable. There's no way that that can happen. Remember, as talked about, it is the forgiveness in a human being that creates strength. If you have the ability within yourself to truly and naturally forgive yourself and all other elements that played a part in that timeline, then what you are then doing is aligning yourself for positive reinforcement so that this can then be resolved. So the very, very key ingredient here is not just jumping right into positive reinforcement, but looking into the acknowledgement of the situation, looking into the whole idea that positivity will certainly follow if I can firstly look into understanding what it is I fear, how I attracted it, how it's been held into my being for so long. So now I'm able to look back at that perspective, and I see the father, for example, that he was very, very angry. And I'm looking more into his perspective. I'm looking at him as an observer. He really did not like his life at that time. He felt he was overwhelmed. He felt he had no freedom. Stress was all that was on his mind. He felt he was losing his mind. He couldn't imagine the type of person he was transforming into. And violent outbursts was the only way that he felt he could escape from that, because he felt that he was completely losing himself. And now I tap into that. And now I gain an understanding from that. I realize that the father has been abusive. I realize that now more of the mentality that I'm gaining from the perception as an observer is telling me why this has happened. Can I really dig deep into my heart, now gaining that understanding and being able to forgive him, to realize that was his mindset at that time? As a psychic, we can do this. And if you can go really, really deep into your heart and discover that loving spark and just radiate that spark all over the timeline, through the people involved, through the event itself, and being able to firstly acknowledge all of that, and then bringing positive reinforcement into that. Well, positive reinforcement will represent creating a whole new timeline that represents healing. A timeline where you can actually see yourself hugging your father and saying, despite everything we've been through, I forgive you. I see the light in you. I see the love in you. I see what you truly are. I understand you were going through hardships. I understand what this was all like for you. I'm getting that perception. I now am able to completely forgive you, myself, and this whole situation. And that becomes the epitome of the new positive timeline. Now we're taking out that old timeline from how we defined it, and we're putting that new timeline in regards to healing and forgiveness to now come forward. Yes, we can do this, because no timeline is ever absolute. Every timeline within our life has been assigned in regards to the relative nature of how we felt about that situation. Understand that external reality, as we understand it, has nothing built into it relating to significant meaning. It is the meaning that we have given every single timeline, every single event, every single person that represents our energy of meaning to how we understand ourselves, to how we understand others. So, if we know that that timeline is relative, then we can take out that timeline that we felt was painful, and now we can put in a timeline to being able to replace that negative feeling with a positive reinforcement. As you're doing this, now you're releasing. Now you're able to move into a positive reinforcement. Now you're able to see and feel and experience that beautiful transformation that's happening from one timeline negatively aligned into a positive that will eventually come into humility, that will bring itself back into balance. And this is the nature of the release. It is when we have the heart to forgive that the release is there. Sometimes it can be quick, sometimes it may take time, but that's okay. You're not in any particular type of rush. You only have infinity to work on yourself, to look into this. But here's the opportunity here and now for you to do it. It's all about, again, that pure strength of forgiveness. And this is where release will then follow. So please remember, it's not about feeling that, why couldn't I just release all this stuff? Why can't I just let this go right away? Don't feel so hard upon yourself on that, because it's all about the idea of really being able to understand, to acknowledge, and then having that spark in yourself to forgive. And when you have that spark to forgive, release will then follow. That is the nature of how all these barriers can be addressed, can be forgiven, can be liberated, is when we have that spark to then achieve releasing as a result in regards to how we have opened our heart very, very deeply, going very deeply inside. Regardless of the trauma, regardless of the situation, you are capable here and now, in this very moment, to forgive those aspects. Some may ask, well, what if other people still hold a grudge with me? If I am able to forgive a person, and those people still are not able to forgive me, does that mean that I'm still contaminated in some form? No, it doesn't. Because you have already done your part. You cannot allow yourself to feel that you have to change another person. That can't be done. That is an impossibility. Each and every single person is their own universe. And as their own universe, they are singularly responsible for all their actions, for all their feelings, for all their meanings. It has nothing to do with you. I certainly understand if there are feelings with others that may come upon me that make me feel that, well, they still haven't forgiven me, but I've certainly forgiven them. There can be that bit of a discomfort, absolutely. But again, all you can do is work on yourself. Wish them well, send them love, send them blessings. And there can be a lot of people in our worlds that really can get to us, that can really feel that, no, you just did this, and there's no way I can forgive you. And yeah, that can be certainly very, very discomforting, and looking at something that's just, really unpleasant. But again, if you've truly forgiven that person, that aspect is understood. I understand this person has a difficulty with me. I know this person cannot see me in the same light as I see them. I understand that's unfortunate, but all I'm going to continue to do is rise in my own light. I'm not going to go to that level now, where it's going to be a game of saying, well, you can forgive me, but I'm not going to forgive you. It's not going to be the back and forth. Let them be who they want to be and allow them to continue their path, because there will be some point in eventuality where they will be able to look at you and say, I forgive you. I forgive myself. I'm able to now move on. That will eventually happen. Doesn't mean it has to happen right now. Work on yourself. Be your own person, because there's no one else on this planet who you can be but yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being a part of the Psychic Academy. I'm Brad Johnson. Take care, namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.